iconic desks. You will find as I give my speeches that a lot of times trying to find a speech is usually the hardest thing for me. And it's also trying to, when you figure out, when I've figured out what my calling is, I usually have fallen into it and nothing is organized or planned of any form. So organizing your speech was probably a hard one for me. But I thought I'd talk to you about one person in my life who made a huge difference in helping me find out one of my volunteer opportunities that I've been a part of for the past 10 years. So I'd like to introduce you to Peter. Peter is 6 days older than I am. And being a military child, I never lived in the same state as Peter, but his mom is best friends with mine. So I have received Christmas cards from Peter every year, birthday cards every year growing up. When I was in kindergarten, Peter was in kindergarten. When I was in 5th grade, Peter was still in kindergarten. When I was in high school, Peter was in middle school. When I was in college, Peter was in high school. You see, Peter has Down syndrome. I didn't know that. I knew he was slightly different, but that was nothing I really paid attention to. He was part of my life just as my sister and everyone else is part of my life. And I didn't think this was anything different. It was something I'd always known. When I came back and I was in grad school, Peter and his family came to visit my family and found out that he had email. So Peter and I started emailing back and forth. His emails are a little bit different. He writes one sentence with no spaces, about 3 words per sentence, and you have to figure out what's going on. You could usually figure out if an older sister had gotten in trouble, if he was watching movies and what he ate for dinner. But this is what I knew. So when I moved to a new house, I sent an email to everyone that said, hey, I've moved. And Peter responded by hitting reply all. And he sent a Peter email. 1 sentence, or 1 line, no spaces, all together. How are you doing? Went to the movies, ate dinner. No one responded except for one friend who said, who is this Peter guy? You picked up another strange friend, haven't you? I don't think English is his first language. Now the person who sent me that email is someone who knows me well and knows that I usually pick up friends at a lot of random places, so he was doing it more out of worry, not out of what did you pick up this time? But I didn't read that the first time. I got angry immediately. Who are you? Peter has Down syndrome. If you had Down syndrome, you wouldn't speak English as well as he did. Obviously, I immediately got an apology response, but I was still angry. Not at my friend, because I knew him not being closed-minded and that he had worked with people with disabilities. It was just the fact, the response that I had to the situation, that someone would quickly focus, judge, and make a decision on who the person was. About 3 days later, I called Mom because I was still angry, and I don't stay angry very long. And she said, well, do you think that's the first time Peter's dealt with it? And I said, well, yeah? And she said, come on now. I didn't raise you in a bubble. Let's try this again. I said, well, maybe he's dealt with it before. And she goes, yeah, he has. You should think about that. Think about people who don't know people like Peter. I thought about it, and as luck, or I call it divine intervention, would have it, about 2 days later, I received a random email from a nonprofit that I've been volunteering with that said, do you have any interest in working with people with special disabilities? Come work with Special Olympics. That was 8 years ago, and I've started working with Special Olympics as a volunteer since then, working with people with special needs, because I realized that there needed to be more people to show the love to people with special needs because they're just like us. I work with special needs bowling, and every Saturday there are 60 people with special needs. And every Thursday there's a special needs worship service with 250 people with special needs. And it's a fantastic organization to see people who love life as much as I do, who see life exactly like I do, but also sometimes oversimplify it and remind me when I don't need to be stressing over something. I think the best recollection that I have when I was working with bowling, one of the couples broke up and the girl cried, and being true girl, oh, it's okay, there's more fish in the sea, it's gonna be better. 30 seconds later, she looked at me and she goes, I'm okay now. I went, wait a minute, what is going on here? But she reminded me that, you know, it was been a short relationship. It wasn't something that was a strong, deep, meaningful relationship. Those they had kept. But she reminded me that there are a lot of things that we end up just sweating the small stuff. We should be focused on the bigger picture. So I'm really grateful for the person who sent the email that said, who is that guy, Peter? He doesn't speak very good English. What's wrong with him? Because that's what caused me to get into something that I thoroughly enjoy doing, and I felt such a calling to be able to remind me about living life to the fullest, remembering the people around me, and remembering that I've been blessed to know people that other people have not. My sister's never worked with special needs. She actually doesn't know Peter, and so that's been a very interesting experience to work with her on that. So I'd recommend taking time in your life to think about the people that you're around, that other people might not know, that you want to help, volunteer, know the group, feel a calling. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emily. That was a very moving speech. Great job on your speech number 2. Moving right along, we are going to have our speaker number 2, which is going to be Sonja Stetzler. She is a communication and wellness coach. She is a veteran here at Toastmasters, and so look forward to hearing her speech, which is titled Lessons of Improv. Please help me welcome Sonja.
Would you say that life can be unpredictable at times? You know, you think you know what's going to happen, but there's a curveball and things don't turn out the way you expected? Or maybe your best made plans go awry. Certainly that puts things in a tizzy. What about a conversation where you think you know what the other person's going to say, and then it doesn't happen, they say something different, and it leaves you kind of surprised? Wow, I didn't think that didn't go the way I thought it was going to. Well, life is like improv. We make things up on the fly all the time. And this past summer, I had the opportunity, I chose to take improv classes. Many of the great speakers today, Darren LaCroix, Patricia Fripp, Lori Vaden, and Doug Stevenson, all have suggested to take improv classes to be a better speaker. And I thought, well, why not? Sounds like fun. Well, little did I know that I was also going to learn life lessons as I went through these courses. The first lesson in improv is listening and being present in the moment. Now, we all listen, right? We all have ears, and we've been listening from the time we were babies. But are we really listening? So what I learned in improv is that if you are not listening well and being present in the moment, you're going to miss a cue, or you're going to miss an opportunity to contribute to the dialogue. Think about it. How many times have you been listening, and yes, you have your smartphone there, you're really thinking about what happened earlier in the day, or really you're thinking about what happens or has to happen later on in the day, or maybe you're thinking about the dinner list or groceries and whatever else going on in your life? Yeah, it happens to me quite a bit. I'll be conversing, but yeah, I really won't be present. So what this has taught me is to be more present, to be in the moment when I'm conversing with someone. And not only do I pick up better on the nonverbal cues, because oftentimes we speak more non-verbally than we do verbally, but also it's helped to reduce the misunderstandings I might have in a conversation if I'm actually there and present in the moment. So the second lesson of improv is to always say yes, and to always say yes and. So what that means is that you take whatever someone has given you. It could be crazy, it could be nonsensical, it could be absolutely nuts, but yet you take it. You accept the dialogue they've given you, and what you do is you add onto it, you build. So if you think about your relationships and about dialogue, You are open to accepting everything, and this builds trust. Your partner trusts that you're going to take what they give you, and they trust that you're going to give something back, even greater than what they gave you. So if you think about the last time you heard an idea from someone, what did you do with it? You might have filtered it, as I often did. Oh, that's not going to work. That's crazy. You're thinking in your head. So what this does, it limits the possibilities. And learning improv has taught me that I have to take whatever is given me. It might be crazy, it might be silly, but if I don't filter it, I can always do something with it. And often, the best ideas are those crazy, silly ideas that would have gotten lost and not acted upon if they were filtered and knocked out. So that has also been very helpful, because some of the best ideas, especially for my kids, are often things that I would dismiss as being, oh, that's so silly. And actually, they're quite creative. Which leads me to my third point, play and creativity. Did you know that a recent study has shown that children laugh 400 times a day, and we as adults only laugh about 14 times a day? It's pretty sad, isn't it? I think so. So what improv has done, through the exercises and the games that we play, it allows us to tap into the right side of the brain, the creative side. And additional benefit to that is our creativity grows, because our creativity really is a root of all of our innovations and the new products and the new services that we develop. Another side benefit is when I went to these classes, if I'm in a bad mood or a sad mood, I always spend the next 2 hours laughing harder and longer than I can ever remember. It was fun, and it was the best stress reducer than any exercise I think I've ever done. So I would go in feeling heavy and down and leaving feeling 1,000 times lighter. The stress reduction was incredible. So was it challenging? Oh, absolutely. Did it stretch me out of my comfort zone? There is no question. And sometimes I felt very hesitant about removing that mask and actually participating and allowing my participants to see the real me. In hindsight, the benefits far outweighed any of the discomfort that I felt. And not only has it allowed me to become a better speaker and thinking quicker on my feet, but I also learned those invaluable life lessons that went along with it. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Sonja. I greatly appreciate that speech, and I think that's very good life lessons. I know I was sitting there taking notes and wanting to learn a little bit more about improv, so thank you. Next up, our third speaker for today is going to be Connor Choka. Sorry, these last names today are killing me. He is a student at UNC Chapel Hill. Unfortunately, this is his last meeting, so please help me welcome Connor to the podium. Bear with us 1 second.
One moment. Just be able to change the ratio so that the thing works.
Pictures on TV.
Yeah, is it this size?
That one.
Okay, yeah, that'd be that. There we go.
Right.
Hello, fellow Toastmasters and distinguished guests. My name is Connor Choka, and I'm going to talk a little bit about self-care today. So my goals are to cover what self-care is, why it's important, and how we can apply it. There's many different forms of self-care out there, and personally, I believe there's no wrong way to do self-care as long as it works for you. And there's so many different ideas of what self-care is and what it isn't, but really in my research, I found that it's what works for you. And so I think we can all agree that we all have to eat, we all have to exercise, and we all have to sleep. If we do a little less of one of these things or a little bit more, we change sort of how we are and act as individuals. It's all about keeping that balance through self-care. I'm going to share a story with y'all today about how I learned about self-care through college. Before I went to college, I would just go out throughout the day, go to school. I'd wake up, eat breakfast, go to school, do study, go to sleep, and then repeat it all over again. I didn't really have that much freedom to change my schedule all that much on my own terms. And so it took me a while to figure out, wow, I can actually tweak things in my schedule, and then that'll change how I am as an individual. And just maybe getting more exercise a week, I might be a little happier. Or getting less exercise a week, I may be more grumpy. And these are all things that are personal to me, and they may be different for you all. So once I got to college, I thought, well, it's just going to be the same. But in college, there's so much more freedom to choose my own schedule and try different things that, having been unaware of the balance before for myself, that I had all these different structures in place to keep that balance for me, I had no idea that I had to now learn how to do that balance for myself. So I started hearing different phrases be tossed around, self-care, you have to love yourself first before you can do anything with other people and really just enjoy life. And I was like, what is this self-care and where can I find it? Because it shouldn't be this difficult, and finding the balance in a college schedule, there's all these other people that do it and students, why can't I do it? So I set out on a mission to figure out what this self-care is and how can I get more of it for myself. So I pulled together a couple of resources that I've searched on EBSCO about self-care, and I found out some really interesting things about what it is in the nursing world and how where it sort of the term self-care actually originated from is from the nursing world, and that it's sort of been drawn out through pop culture today to what it is now, which is I have a formal definition, but I'm going to share my definition. My definition is that it's whatever you do for yourself, whether it be spiritual, physical, electronical, whatever it is that you do for yourself to make yourself feel better. And so this leads me to my formal definition of self-care by Dorothea Orem, who is an individual that contributed to the nursing field. Self-care is the personal care that individuals require each day to regulate their own functioning and development. And I got this definition, which is by Dorothea Orem, from Mary White, who is a student that was writing her master's thesis. When I found this definition, I was sort of like, oh, so this is where it really comes from. This is where all of it stems from. But what are the benefits for me in a way that is more concrete? So I came up with 3 benefits that self-care does for me. Feel better about yourself for yourself, which is really important, because if you're feeling better for other people, then you're not really doing self-care. At least in my experiences, I found that when I'm trying to feel better for everyone else, I end up making myself feel worse because I'm just exhausting myself just going around the bush and trying to get at something that really is impossible to get at. Feel more spiritually connected, which has been a really big thing that in the field of self-care, that you can come at self-care from a spiritual point of view without actually sort of touching the whole religion field. Because people think that, oh, well, religion is really important to like how I operate, and that may be true for those individuals, but when it comes to self-care, it's more of a spiritual perspective where you're coming at it from like internally, is how I would describe it. And then it also just helps maintain a positive outlook. And then the application of self-care for the nursing field, I found from Dr. B. Ross at the University of Mexico in 1990. He says, provides nurses with a formalized way of assessing the needs of a patient. So they actually use this Orem self-care deficit theory to assess patients that are in the hospital and need help. So that's the practical sense of where it came from. And then some practical uses that you can use for yourself. Then Mary White, who's a student applying for her master's, she came up with that, why don't we add to this theory and add to it in the form of spiritual practices and beliefs? So she's distinguishing the difference between a practice and a belief, where she says, a practice is performed by an individual as a personal pursuit or by a group of individuals as public participation, either alone or in concert with others. And a spiritual belief, which is three things which are commonly found in the literature: A, relationships with other people, awareness of a higher being, and recognition of a broader world. So then my significance is that, yes, there is a practical place that this concept came from, but today it's a much more personal thing, and that it can be taken in pop culture. You can take it and just apply it to yourself and use it for what you want to use it for, which is whatever. The possibilities are endless. And with that, thank you.
Thank you, General Evaluator, Toastmasters, and especially Emily for a great presentation today. I was thinking of somebody that had touched my life in a special way, and sometimes we touch others in a special way. And hearing about a story about Peter really brought back some of that inspiration, and I thought that was very appropriate for our group. That's one thing that we need to do as Toastmasters, is to reach our audience. Address them in a way that maybe they're not addressed every day. So being encouraged through the story of Peter and working on speech number 2, which is organization, is a sandwich technique where we have a topic, subtopics, the support, and then we finally conclusion. So intro, body, conclusion. And I thought that the story frame was excellent. It flowed from the beginning of their relationship to present day. It went back into the body and gave us deeper details on how that relationship developed. And then finally, it led into the conclusion, which was a call to action. Why is somebody giving this speech to me? What am I supposed to get out of this? And being that, she was touched in a special way, and at first what seemed negative as she received emails, that she realized that this was really an opportunity to educate, help, and get involved and help other people in their lives. And so her call to action was really, in my opinion, bringing other folks to come out, to help, to get involved, and she shared what she does with Special Olympics. Some of the things, this is speech number 2. I saw a lot of great things that I've learned. Body language was excellent. She addressed that eye contact was a problem for her, and I felt like she made contact with most folks in the room as she circulated around, so well done at knocking that fear out. I think if I were to maybe critique or add a little extra value, I would think that the opening is really something special and something that I've been working on. if the opening could have been a question or a strong remark or painting a picture or a story of Peter or how he shaped your life at the very beginning and then kind of transitioned. And I always like what Zig Ziglar says. Tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. And kind of give us that recap so we know from the get-go how our minds are going to shape and what we're going to take out of this conversation. But otherwise, super job. It's only speech number 2. You're well on your way to be a great Toastmaster, and I thank you very much for your speech today. Thank you.
What can you say to somebody that you look up to? When Sonja came, she started her speech with questions. Guess what? I just emulated her. I just did the same thing she did. Why? Because she usually gives perfect speeches. She has completed all of her speeches, all of her manual speeches. Now she's actually reaching out from outside of that program, really, and bringing information into us. Information we can learn from. Not only did she share that information, but she also encouraged us to grow and to be in the moment, to be present in what you're doing. Her actions, her movements, her intonation is something that we all need to strive for when we make our speeches. Now, I took a few notes because there were so many like little tidbits that I said, you know, I gotta remember that. And I hope you did too. Eye contact, you know? She didn't state that, but she went around the room telling us, this is how you do it. And try this improv because it'll make you better at making these speeches. She shared techniques, encouraged us to get out of our comfort zone. What is my comfort zone? My comfort zone is sitting there. I'm here. She's reaching out to me. So, intonation was good, speech was clear, something that I can work for, always make sure that everybody understands what I'm saying, vocalizing everything, and making the gestures that go along with whatever you're saying. What can you do better? I think that the only thing that you can do better is to continue to make your speeches and to encourage us to improve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. Fellow Toastmasters, guests, and especially Connor. This is Connor's second speech from the Competent Communicator Manual. And the objectives of his speech mainly to have an outline that was easy to follow, clear, easy to understand, that had a beginning, a body, conclusion. Also to have a strong opening and conclusion and have smooth transitions. I think Connor achieved all these objectives. So I'll go over a few of the strengths that I think were very obvious. One was his visuals. For speech number 2, that was fantastic. No matter